right, Aaron, thank you so much for the introduction. I would still love for each of you to just go down the line, say who you are, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kick things off and get right into it.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Joey Dray. I joined Subway about a year and a half ago, and I'm responsible for our in-restaurant digital guest experience. I could talk to you all day about kiosks and digital menu boards. That's the majority of my scope, but really any digital guest that's coming into the restaurant, what's their in-restaurant experience when they get there?
Hey everyone, I'm Nick Petrocci, Senior Director of Restaurant Technology for Zaxby's. I've been back this round for Zaxby's for 3 years. Braden and I, we share a very symbiotic relationship, and his entire tech stack is the exact same as ours. And also the previous transition from Micros to PAR, we did the same thing. So we follow along with these guys really closely. So good to meet all of you.
And hi, I'm Irene Strulis. I oversee e-commerce for the licensing division and retail channels for GO2Foods. For those of you not familiar, GO2Foods, formerly known as Focus Brands, is the parent company for Auntie Anne's, Carvel, Jamba, Cinnabon, Schlotzsky's, Moe's, McAllister's, and our licensing division focuses on bringing our brands to life outside of our own restaurants, so and other channels like other food service, grocery retail, e-commerce, et cetera.
Awesome, thank you. So traditionally, the bulk of the QSR business has always been the drive-through and the counter service, right? But that has changed drastically over the years, and now we see so much of the business flowing through other channels, other touch points, and it feels like the core reason to go after those experiences is to better meet customers where they are with the right message, the right service, the right product. So I do want to take a moment to just set the stage and understand for each of you, like, where are your brands at with those journeys? Where are you activated off-premise or through digital? That can be in restaurant through enhancing the customer experience, or above restaurant with online ordering. Where are you at, and how does it fit into your broader brand strategy? And Joey, unfortunately, you have the pleasure or displeasure of being closest to me, so we're going to start with you.
Yeah, so because of the size of Subway, we're certainly one of the larger brands, and the majority of our restaurants are here domestically in North America, but we also have a significant amount that's global. And so for us, we actually change our strategy when it comes to delivery through either third party or through first party slightly differently based on the market that we're in. For us, we try certainly to be in every channel as much as we possibly can. Kiosks are a new in-restaurant digital channel for us, but certainly the strategy at which we approach and fund the difference between third party and first party internationally versus domestically is something that we try and fine-tune very, very closely.
Yeah, I'd say for us, we were historically a major drive-through brand. Single lane drive-throughs at about 98% of our locations. So we're just now scratching the surface of different concepts, adding in kiosks, adding in other things. We rode the COVID wave for delivery and digital for sure. We were a little bit resistant to it just because we were already so tuned to that to-go concept in drive-through. So, but now we have a healthy digital mix, both. For digital, we do in-store, curbside, and drive-through pickup, as well as catering, and then we have the third-party delivery portfolios as well. And we're just starting to scratch the surface on other channels like kiosks and some of the digital menu board things that we're starting to talk about, and treating those as conversion funnels is going to be a really big part of our 2025.
And so for us, we have 7 different brands. So each brand is maybe in a slightly different journey. But across most of them, we have online ordering and in-app ordering, so for first party, for pickup and delivery. We have catering for quite a few of our brands, which is a significant separate channel for us as well. Third-party delivery platform is a channel for most of our brands. And I think it was alluded to earlier, it does bring in a different group of customers into our brands as well. And then the reason I'm here, which is licensing. So you can find a lot of our brands in spaces outside of our own restaurants, in grocery stores and other food service partners. And a lot of reason for that is some of our brands are so geographically limited in access. There might be regional in nature, or they might be in locations that are not as easy for someone to get to on a day-to-day basis. So these other spaces allow us to get our brands into those customers' hands.
Awesome. And you just hit on something really important, and so I want to poke into it. is this the same customer in these different spaces, or are you talking to someone new? And if it's someone new or someone different, like how are they differentiated from your traditional core drive-through counter guest?
Yeah, so I think a great example is Carvel. Carvel is our soft serve ice cream brand. It is really well known and beloved in all of the tri-state area in Florida. And everyone outside of those states is familiar with it as well, but I think for a lot of our customers, one of the first exposures they had to that brand is by going to their grocery store and buying an ice cream cake in the freezer. So between that and areas where like a good partnership with a food service provider, with a food service partner that has a lot more geographic locations, it allows us to introduce or give a small taste of our brands to those consumers that when they are in the location, when our brands are available, they'll come to us.
Yeah, I think we really use it in kind of a similar way, quite not at the scale as Carvel is. Most of our locations not quite as saturated as a McDonald's or a Subway. On average, our consumers are about 15 to 20 minutes away from their nearest Zaxby's. So we have data that supports that, and so third-party delivery and just off-premise format in general becomes super important and super incremental. We're not, they're not driving by our store constantly. They may not even know our store exists. They live on another side of town or something like that. We're all creatures of habit, right? And especially if you live in Atlanta, you stay in your neighborhood. Otherwise, you're going to sit in traffic. So, you may not even know that there's a Zaxby's further down. So that's going to be, it's really critical for us, and it's gotten a lot of new exposure, new acquisition customers coming into our funnel that we've never seen before.
For us, and I think it's actually a very interesting panel because I think a lot of our brands are different in terms of the occasion. So we're a very heavy weekday lunch brand. That's the majority of our traffic comes through there. But we're also in a lot of locations that are in C-stores, convenience stores, hospitals, university locations, and so there's a little bit of a food is fuel type of mentality sometimes for that lunch weekday day part, but we also need to tap into all these other third-party channels and marketplaces. Catering is also a big opportunity and focus for us, and so we have to be really diligent with the message that we're sending to that guest for the occasion that we think that they're gonna approach our brand for.
Are you ever worried that you're leaving behind your core guest when you're delving into these new channels?
I don't think so. I hope not. There's definitely and I think every brand deals with this. There are certainly the value-oriented guests that are trying to cross-shop to really understand, where can I get the best bang for my buck, or, if I download the app, can I take advantage of something? But I think the only instance of maybe another guest from another channel might be edging me out is for that mobile app guest that's coming in and picking up their order while the analog guest is still waiting in line to place their order. That's kind of the only thing from a guest experience that I've seen that makes,
Yeah, I think if you talk to our operators, they're like, we don't like digital guests as much as the guests that we can see and we can physically talk to, and they're fine to wait. Versus my digital guest is, how dare they want to pick up on time? So there's some aspect of push and pull with that, and so what we've really tried to do is, my job as the in-store technology is try to queue the order appropriately, make sure I'm not skipping the line on anybody, getting more in-depth integrations on live looks at wait times and prep times, so that the digital customer just generally doesn't seem too disruptive to the normal in-store operations. But yeah, it's a constant education factor with our operators of hey, these are still your guests, even though they're ordering off premise, and they still deserve the time, attention, all of those things. So it's definitely a learning curve for all of us.
Yeah, I think to kind of add to that, we have with our first party delivery and pickup, all of it I think is immediately recognized by the operators as utmost benefit. With our third party delivery, the customers that it brings in, I think some of the earlier discussion alluded to it. It's people who are undecided. They're not necessarily that most loyal customer that would have started with our app in the first place or with the website in the first place. So it's incremental, and they're coming in, and maybe we can convert them into our more loyal segment. And then with our licensing brand, so that becomes a little bit more of heated conversations sometimes with our operator and franchisees, because there is a little bit of a sensitivity. But at the end of the day, everything we do is always to build our franchisees' business up as much as possible. So it's ensuring that however we bring our brands to life outside of their stores, it's not the exact same product. It's not the exact same experience. And if anything, it's just a way to tease someone to love the brand or want experience more of a brand in its purest form. And when it comes to like packaging or promotions, we will always tie back into our loyalty and into our franchisee business.
Got it. So it feels to me from this conversation like these channels are driving in a new guest or helping to build some incremental behavior. And it feels like as you try to convert that customer into one of your core repeat loyal guests, the connectivity through those off-premise or digital touch points is really important back to your broader brand strategy or your broader brand experience. How are you creating that connectivity? How are you creating those moments in time where you create the stage, the foundation for them to become one of your core guests? And Joey, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't know when's the last time anybody here has walked into a Subway, but we lack a lot of technology today. For a long time, we've only had a point-of-sale system, and actually the data that we collect on that point-of-sale system is barely anything, right? We only ring you up for a 6-inch turkey. We don't know if you had it, olives and tomatoes and light mayo and things like that. So for us, when we went through the journey of starting to include kiosks in our restaurants, it wasn't just kiosks that we needed to include. We needed to include kitchen display screens, which did not exist before. Sandwich artists, which we call team members, work off of the guest that's walking the line with them or printed receipts. So we really needed to build an entire what we call connected digital restaurant within an existing restaurant to be able to support that new guest journey that we're implementing, but also bring that over to the team member side, to the sandwich artist side. And I think, for the marketers or for the technology folks in the room, you always want to make sure if you're enabling something new to the guest, you have to make sure that gets executed and that the restaurant team has those tools and really the capability to be able to execute whatever that is. So it's a huge initiative for us, huge.
Yeah, I think we rely on a couple things. I think that the main thing around connecting to a digital guest is making sure that, one, we're showing up, right, like where they need us to be. And a lot of that, and everybody can just groan at me when I mention this, is in-store connectivity. I mean, if you don't have strong network infrastructure in your in-store, the digital experience is very sporadic, especially in a world where we're way more cloud-based reliant. I have a kitchen system that's cloud-based. I have a POS that's cloud-based. I have kiosks that are running on it. I have high-fidelity cameras that are looking at speed of service that all need this internet connection. And in some of our rural areas, it's really challenging. So I think we rely on that definitely with the infrastructure side. And then the other piece of it is just showing up where they are and making sure that we're presenting our brand in the best possible way with consistent menu offerings, most popular things, even things like, really simple things of what do we suggest? How do we suggest you eat our food? Like what moments can we create in the app and website to really drive that home of like, this is the chicken finger sandwich Zaxby's way, like this is the way you should eat it. And I think being there for those people, especially on things like a third party where they don't have any exposure to our brand other than that one flat menu page that they're looking at. How do we make sure the images are right, make sure the branding's correct, and we're advertising the right meals that really sing our praises. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think when it comes to, I'm sure everyone in this room will agree, there's a degree of separation every time. Like if you get something right there at the counter and eat it immediately, if you're getting it for pickup and taking it home, if you're getting it delivered to you in, 30 to 45 minutes, there's a little bit of an experience change, right, that happens. But I think the big focus, and I know a lot of you in this room probably feel the same way, is about really focusing on the right packaging and ensuring that you're preserving like the quality of the food and the core experience of the brand as much as possible. And that's by, preserving the food itself first and foremost and getting the product in the most pristine condition for the conditions allowed to your customer, and then making sure that the branding is consistent across all the touch points, digital, physical, packaging, and that very much translates into our licensing business as well. We work really closely with our partners from the very beginning to even establish like what category should we even be in. We do a lot of research. A lot of it starts with our franchisees and our customers to understand where do we have the right to play outside of our own restaurants. Where will people authentically perceive us as the right place to be? And then how do we deliver on the culinary experience? So when someone tastes something, even if it's in a different format, they're like, oh, that's Cinnabon, or oh, that's Auntie Anne's. And there's not that level of degradation of the brand, because at the end of the day, our franchisees are our core business, and we want to make sure that everything we put out into the marketplace is a positive return on to them.
Can't say Cinnabon does that. I could be blindfolded and I'll know it's a Cinnabon. That you guys got that right.
Well, I'll get you some Cinnabon when we get back to mine.
Subway also sells, kudos to you, we do sell foot-long Cinnabon. So thank you very much for that partnership and licensing.
Yes, our sidekicks.
So foot-long Cinnabon, foot-long Auntie Anne's pretzels. They're delicious. Get it on the app.
And that's an example. So Subway in U.S. has over 20,000 locations, right? Cinnabon has a little over 1,000. A good percentage of them are in the mall and the airports. So geographically, access-wise, it's a great way for us to partner, to drive incrementality, drive a different occasion, while bringing more people into the brand.
Are you able to measure that? Are you able to see the connectivity of when you put Cinnabon into a Subway, how it then feeds back into your other brick and mortar locations?
So without disclosing specific details, or that's
Totally.
maybe not even that specific relationship, we've definitely done studies, and we've seen research where when we launch something in the marketplace, where it wasn't something in our own restaurants and bakeries, it was elsewhere, and there was marketing support and brand awareness, we've seen similar items on the menus in our restaurants go up as well. So there's definitely a positive impact, and it's nice to have when we go back to the franchisees and have that story.
So I am curious, we're talking about some very complex channels, ones that have a great degree of coordination to execute upon, whether it be at the marketing calendar level down through to the actual tech stack. How would you rate your respective maturity in those spaces? And I know, Irene, that's going to be a hard one for you because you got 7 ones to cover. But I'm curious, like, where do you view yourself along this path to excellence? And maybe give some comfort to the room if they're feeling like they're not quite as far along as you may be. And we'll start, with Nick, you.
Wow. What kind of scale? I'll do a letter scale because that seems kinder. I'd say we're around a C. You know, like I'd say like we're focused. The last 2 years have really been about focusing on the infrastructure. We have a custom bespoke app and front end website as well. We launched our new cloud-based point of sale. We've started building going after commercialized products. M-Particle, like I said, we're very aligned with Tropical Smoothie, our neighbors. We went with M-Particle with the CDP. So a lot of it was just like bricklaying. We just need to get the infrastructure in a much better, more stable format. And I think what we'll start seeing over the next 2 years is, one, I think consumer preferences will start to change pretty dramatically. We've already seen some dramatic shifts in the way that they're interacting with brands, but I'd say, a C. I think we could always do better. I think we'll get smarter about our offer engine. I think we'll get smarter about how we approach loyalty and rewards generally. And my team is primarily focused on how do we get the in-store experience right, menu boards, kiosks, internet connectivity, those types of things. And I think, we're just still in a lot of infrastructure game. I think we'll start seeing, maybe we'll get up to a B in 2025.
Everyone's looking at me. Okay, so again, it's a little different brand by brand, like you said. I think, so I've been there for almost 3 years. In the 3 years I've been there, year over year, I've seen a lot of progress and a lot more unity and a lot more like discipline as to how our brands are approaching the planning, the go-to-market cycles, and all the support. And I think the lead times have gotten more. I think we had a roundtable yesterday where they'll plan like 12 months out, but kind of revisit and pivot as need be as the quarters come up. When it comes to the work that I'm leading and my team that I'm on, it's a little different, right? Because again, the priority for us is always going to be driving the business to our restaurants and the franchisees first and foremost. So a lot of the marketing calendars, the plans, the support will focus there. And then we kind of work in parallel to see where the different brand launches or product launches that we have in our space play into the broader plans for the brand.
I'm not going to give myself us a letter grade because I want a job on Monday, but we have a tremendous amount of our technologies are built in-house. We have a proprietary POS system that we built in-house. We built our app, our web experience. They're global. We have them in a number of different international markets. And I think the grass is always greener on the other side, because it is a nightmare to manage your own POS system with a menu that we have, and the amount of customizations and products and SKUs. In terms of execution, I think we've built a tremendous team that is all around process and control, but also making sure that the ones and twosy franchisees that are based in Colombia or Finland or New Zealand are able to still execute what they want to do from a restaurant perspective with the kind of resources that we have. So I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity when it gets to the personalization side of it, which we just started to really kick up in the last year. So that, for me, is kind of the biggest opportunity, I think.
To be clear, a C is average. So whoever's writing right now, a C is average. Nick
C's
says
get
we're
degrees.
average.
C's get degrees, that's right. Great. So I do want to take a moment, Irene, and click into the partnership side. I think that's really interesting. So I'm curious, how do you go about identifying a partnership with another brand or with a retailer? And as you think through the varying maturities of your brands at GO2Foods, where do you find that green space, and how do you think about it?
Yeah, so I mean, again, it kind of comes back to upholding all of our support for the franchisees and thinking about what geographies are our brands currently not in where we could really lean into. So sometimes that will determine, which retailer it might be. Maybe it's a national scale, maybe it's more regional in nature. But we approach it with a lot of, it's very intentional, very strategic, very rigorous. We have a full kind of stages and gates process around any opportunity we want to potentially bring to light. The brand teams weigh in very heavily, like, yes, no, like we will or won't, want to support this. So there's definitely a lot of rigor that goes into it. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are upholding our brand standards and values, so the partners we go to market with kind of are in that same place and space as we are. And then we do a lot of innovation sessions led by our R&D teams, heavily weighed in consumer trends and insights. So that a lot of times will kind of shape and dictate where we go next.
Got it. Okay, I think, do we have time for one more? Okay, one more question then, and I have for all of you. We've talked about a lot of different things today, and if you're new to this area with your respective brands, it can feel daunting. So if you're really focused on trying to deliver the maximum customer impact, if you really want to find your footing as a brand stepping into these new spaces outside of drive-through and counter, where would you recommend your peers spend their time first? And Joey, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think the QSR industry is very unique in the sense that we own the entire guest experience from beginning to end, albeit some of that starts on third-party delivery and things like that. But versus CPG, where maybe you're selling a product on somebody else's shelf, we own all that data. We get all that data, and so I think for me, at the end of the day, it's making sure that you're focusing on that guest experience, because it's that experience that is going to bring them back, no matter what. That's where brand loyalty will always play its role. And so for me, it's always about the experience. How do you make sure that it's at parity between analog and digital? But you also want to make sure that guests know how to use all your different tools and access your platforms and your channels. So for me, it's experience. Keep it the same. Keep it consistent. Make sure that it's omni-channel.
Yeah, for me, I'd say it's frequency. I think was one of the main topics here this week, and acquisition is pretty daunting. I'd say that's probably the most daunting thing we can talk about is, how do I go out into the sea of consumers and say, please pick me? Whereas I think you have a core value group already who love your brand, who are advocates for your brand, and how do you get involved in the frequency play? QSR's always share of stomach, right? Like, how do I get them to come to me more than the guy down the street? And that's really, a lot of that goes into focusing on the in-store experience for sure, and the digital experience itself. But The digital experience has such a capability for convenience that definitely increases frequency, right? Like, and you have to get it right on that visit, whether it's a curbside visit or a drive-through pickup visit or something like that. If you make their life easier for that 15 minutes that they're on your property to complete their order, or you drop it to 13 minutes and you get them out there, they're going to think about you the next time they drive by. And so frequency is so critical, and it comes with the in-store experience, but then also just the convenience factor. How can I get them through faster? Time is valuable.
I mean, I think I definitely agree with my co-panelists here. And the other thing I would say is just never leave a dead end, right? So if your customer wants to engage with you and they're coming in to try and order and the product's out of stock or not in this location, how do you potentially point them to a different location that has the product? How do you point them to a 3PD that will deliver from a different space? How do you point them to an e-commerce, like local grocery or platform that will ship your brand to them? So you never just leave them hanging. I'd say that's number one. And then the other thing, I mean, licensing, I don't know that that's number one for anyone when you leave this room, but I'll do like a shameless plug. So Go-To Foods, we're number 2 in the licensing globally when it comes to food brands. And so we actually established about 3.5 years ago a professional services arm, which kind of acts like a consultancy and like a full support partner. So if anyone does have questions or interest in like licensing your brand, or we're always open to having a discussion.
Awesome. All right, what questions do we have from the crowd?
Alicia, don't make me call on you. All right, Joey, Nick, Irene, thank you guys so much.
All right.